is the 7th grade 3.2 activity. In this activity, students will explore the rate of the speed of various animals. The standards covered in this activity are 7 RP2B. Out of the hardcover book, it starts on page 104, and out of the practice journal, which is what you should be using, it will start on page 59. So if you flip your practice book to page 59, you'll see a chart similar to the one that I have here. What we're going to do is we're going to work together to go through and find the missing speeds of each of our animals. And we will be working with speeds of miles per hour, as well as converting into feet per second or vice versa. What we will be doing is, as we do these, we're going to round each of our answers to the nearest tenth, which is our first decimal place. So we're going to start with, I'm going to cover up this bottom conversion just so that it's not quite so confusing. Okay, we're going to start with using the conversion from converting in miles per hour to feet per second. So if we're given the miles per hour, like we are here, the 61, we're going to use the conversion rates that I have here. So I'll explain these really quick. The first one is if I had 61 miles per 1 hour, and then I wanted to convert that into feet per second. Well, I would have to convert into feet and then also into seconds. So my first conversion here was converting the 1 hour that I had into my seconds. So notice that I did go through and I set it up so that I could cross cancel my hours. Then my second conversion is I needed to convert that 61 miles into feet. So once again, 1 mile is 5,280 feet. And you'll notice that I set it up so that I was able to cross cancel my miles labels. Now when I look through this, the labels that I have left over are feet and seconds. So that's my feet per second. And then to find my answer, I'm going to multiply the numbers straight across on each level. So here I have 61 times 1, which gives me 61, times 5,280. Okay, so of course you can use a calculator for this. I'm not checking your longhand multiplication. So 61 times 5,280. And that gives me 322,080 is my top number, over on the bottom I have 1 times 3,600 times 1, so 3,600 is my bottom number. And this line right here means to divide. So I'm going to hit divide by 3,600. And when I do that, I get 89.46 repeating. So if we round to our first number behind our decimal, this 6 that's behind the 4 is going to tell that 4 to go up to a 5. So our answer here would be 89.5, and that's feet per second. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do the same concept, only this time instead of it being 61, we're going to go ahead and do our 43. So I'm going to work my way down this first column and get all of my feet per second. So I have 43 now. So where I had this 61, I'm going to now replace this with a 43. So 43 miles. So on the top, I have 43 times 1, which is 43, times 5,280. And on the bottom, I have 1 hour times 3,600 times 1. So 3,600 is the number that's going to be on the bottom. So 43 times 5,280. And that answer of 227,040, I'm going to divide by 3,600. When I do that, I get 63.06. So that first 6 is going to tell that 0 to become a 1. So we would get 63.1 for that one. And that was, sorry, it's covered up. That was the coyote. Okay, so now if we go through and do our next one, it looks like we have the giant tortoise, and that was a 0.2. So we'll substitute in our 0.2. And really, when I look at my equation right now, where I had the 43 here, that's where I can substitute in my 0.2 and not have to rewrite. Okay, so on my calculator, because now this is the 0.2, I'm going to punch in 0.2 times 5,280, so that's changing it into the feet. And then I'm going to divide that answer by 3,600, which is changing it into my seconds, and I get 0.293 repeating. So the 9 is going to tell my 2 to become a 3, so we're going to say it's 0.3 feet per second. Okay, we'll do one more and then I'm gonna have you guys finish out the rest of this table. So you may wanna jot down this little conversion. Whoops, I didn't mean to erase that. You might wanna jot down this conversion that you have. Otherwise you can pause the video and just look back at it too. So my next one that I'm gonna substitute in is this 39.4. Oh, whoops, no, I skipped 32. So my giraffe was a 32. So we'll put 32 here. So now 32 is going to go here. And this would be the conversion that I would jot down so that you could work your way through it. Okay, so on my calculator, 32 times 5,280. Divide that answer by 3,600. And that gives me 49.3 repeating. So that 3 is going to tell the 9 to stay a 9. So it's 46.9. And I don't know, I might have just said 43. I meant 46.9. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. So what you guys are going to do is you can either choose to write this equation, maybe writing this equation right here, right above your table there or below it, so that you know which equation you're using. Or you can just pause your video and work your way through it. I will leave that up to you, looking back at the screen to see what your conversion is. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and move on with converting from feet per second to miles per hour. Okay, so that we're going to do the reversal. So we'll still be using the same numbers. It's just that in our conversion, some of them are going to be shifted around. So here we've got converting our feet per second into miles per hour. So once again, just to explain the conversion, 29.3 feet per 1 second. And then when we convert our seconds to hours, that's where we had our 3,600 seconds per 1 hour. So that's how we got the second conversion. And we, once again, set it up so that we could cross cancel on the seconds. And then to change it into miles, we have 1 mile is 5,280 feet. And we set it up so that we could cross cancel with the feet. So that's how I knew that the feet were going to go on the bottom. So my conversion, we are left with this. Our number that we originally had times 3,600 times 1, which is still going to give us the same thing. And then on the bottom, we have 1 times 5,280, which is 5,280. Okay, so now we're just going to substitute out in that front spot. So the first one that we had was our 29.3. So that's what I had in this original one. So 29.3. And now I'll pull my calculator out. And I'm going to do the same thing that I was just doing. It's just now I'm multiplying and dividing by a different number. So 29.3 times 3,600. And I'm going to divide that answer by 5,280. And when I do that, I get 19.97. So that 7 would tell the 9 to round up, which would be a 10, which ultimately rounds up my 19 to the next number, which would be 20. And you're going to find that you're going to have quite a few of these in this column that are going to round up to the next whole number. Okay, so let's try another one. So the next one we had that we haven't done is, whatever this is, the Cheetah, that had 102.6 feet per second. So we're going to substitute that in this spot right here, 102.6. So now in my calculator, 102.6 times 3,600, and divide that answer by 5,280. And when I do that, I get 69.95, and the 5 is going to tell the 9 to round up, which then the 9 is going to tell my whole number to go up to the next one. So instead of 69, it becomes 70. Okay, let's try one more. So it's very similar to the previous one. It's just a different conversion. So our next one is 13.2. So we'll put 13.2 in here. Okay, so 13.2 times 3,600 divided by 5,280. And when I do that, I get exactly 9. So that's going to take or travel 9 miles per hour. And I'm just going to double check that one. So 13.2 times 3,600 and divide that by 5,280. Yep, it gave me 9. So you could write it out as 9 or 9.0 if you want to see that first place behind the decimal. Okay, so this is the conversion that you're going to use for your feet per second. and converting it into miles per hour. So you can either, once again, pause your video and just leave that conversion up there so that you can see it, or you can go ahead and maybe write that right up above here so that you've got it to go through and use later. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. So if you wanna work through this, you really need to work through the rest of all of these before you move on to the next step. So you might need to pause your video and finish out this chart, but I'm gonna go ahead and shift on to the next slide. Okay, so once we have our chart all filled out, and if you'd like to check yourself or double check yourself when you're done, you can come see me and look through my answer key and make sure that you have all the correct answers. So our next step is we're gonna go through and actually create a table and graph this information. So we're not gonna graph all of it. We're gonna pick a couple and we're gonna go through and compare the speeds of a couple different animals. So here it says work with a partner, so we'll do this one together. And it says a cheetah and a Thompson gazelle are running at a constant speed. Find the missing distances. So when I go through to do this, my cheetah, if I look back at my chart, which I believe I had the cheetah done, so I'm gonna have to do the Thompson gazelle, and that one's sitting clear down here. So I'm gonna go through really quick and do my Thompson gazelle also. So when I do that, I have to shift back to my other conversion. So I'm gonna slide this down. So my other conversion for the Thompson gazelle, because that one they gave me in 50 miles per hour. So this was a 50. On my calculator, let's go 50 times 5,280. And then divide by that 3,600. Gives me 73.3. So I'm going to jot that down. Okay, so I have 73.3 for that one. And then my cheetah was the 102.6. So those are the two that I need for my chart. I'm going to jot those down quick. So 73.3. Okay, so now when I go through to do this, we're trying to find the distance that each of those can travel in the amount of time given. So at 0 seconds, each of them is going to travel 0 distance. Okay, at 1 second, since they're traveling this speed per second, the cheetah travels 102.6 feet away, while the gazelle is 73.3 feet away. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the next second. How far would they be away from their starting point? So to do that, I'm just going to work the cheetah all the way through. 102.6, and I'm just going to take it times 2, which gives me 205.2. Okay, now from here, I can either continue to add 102.6 every time, or I can clear my calculator and take 102.6 times 3. I'm just going to choose to add the 102.6 each time because it's fewer button pushes. So we get 307.8. So at 3 seconds away, it's now 300, a little over 300 feet away. And then add 102.6 is 410.4. Okay, another second away, 102.6, 513 feet. And then add again, 102.6 is 615.6. And then add one more time, 102.6, and that gives us 718.2, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to pause your video and work your way through doing the gazelle. So if you work your way through in the same manner, you can either multiply or you can add 73.3 each time. So go ahead and pause your video and work your way through each of those. Okay, in the end, these are the numbers that you should have ended up with for each of your distances from the starting point. So our next step is we're gonna go through and actually graph these. So we're gonna graph the gazelle and the cheetah. So I'll do a brief explanation of how you actually go through and graph these. And then I'll actually show you the actual graph. So I'm gonna jump back a slide. So when I go through and I look back at this one, I would go through and start at my gazelle. Well, the time was 0 seconds and the gazelle could go 0 feet in 0 seconds. So it starts right here. Okay, so my next one, take note that on the graph, the boxes going up are each worth 50 because they're marked every 2 and they're marked at hundreds. And then the boxes going across are each worth half, but so every 2 boxes is worth 1. So at 1 second, our gazelle could go 73.3 feet. So 1 second, this first line would be 50, so 73.3 is probably about in the middle of that. And I know that that's not perfect, but this is gonna kind of be a guesstimate, okay? All right, so then at 2 seconds, it would travel 146.6, so that's a little under 150. So my 150 would be that first line above the 100, so we'll just go a little bit below that. And my whiteboard is it's kind of hard to get it on exactly. Okay, so at 3 seconds, 73.3 times 3 gives me 219. I'm going to get these really quick. So plus 73.3, 293, just so I don't have to jump back and so forth. So we'll go ahead and just at least graph those ones out. So on my next one, at 3 seconds, it was 219.9, so that's around 220. So a little above the 200, maybe a partial box up. So at 3 seconds, partial box up above 200. And then at 4 seconds, it was 293. That's a little under 300. So at 4 seconds, we're going to go a little under 300. And then we'll add 73.3. Gives me 366.5. And 439.8. And 513.1. So we'll finish graphing the rest of those out. So now at 5 seconds, it was 366.5. So that's a little above 350. So 5 seconds, my 300 mark, the next line up is 350. And we're a little above that at 366. And then at 6 seconds, it could go 439. So that's a little under 450. So 6 seconds, 400, a little under 450. And then lastly, at 7 seconds, it was at 513 feet away. So 7 seconds, that's a little above 500, somewhere in there. My final step is to take a straight edge and actually connect these dots. Like I said, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be, your dots are going to be close to line. You had to kind of estimate where those would be. Okay, so what you're going to do is now, once you've copied that down, you're going to go ahead and do the cheetah portion of it. That one's a little bit easier to graph because you're closer to those 100 marks instead of the 50 marks where I had to jump boxes. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video and finish working your way through and graphing the cheetah, which of course the cheetah is still going to start at 0, 0. So you're going to have that as your starting point. When you're finished, you can check back and look at the graph that I have. Okay, so you should have ended up with a graph similar to this. Obviously, it may not look perfectly like that, but something similar to that. So the question on letter C, after we've completed the line graph, says which graph is steeper? Well, if you were to walk up a hill, which one would be harder to walk up? That would be our cheetah graph. And the speed of which animal is greater? So which one got a further distance away in the same amount of time? That also, whoops, I forgot my H, was also the cheetah. Had a faster speed. Okay, so what you're going to do for homework is you're going to flip to your next page, which is page 61. And you're going to go ahead, I think it's 61. Yeah, you're going to go ahead and pick 2 other animals off of your chart. You can choose whatever animals you want. Instead of doing the 10 that it says over on that page, you're going to pick 2 of them. So you'll pick 2 animals. You're going to create a table like this for 7 seconds of time. And then you're going to also graph out. And there is a graph given for you with distances already there in feet per second. But if you decide to use miles per hour, you're going to have to modify that graph. And you may have to modify it depending on what animals you chose. So when you're finished with that, then you can check back with me and I'll check your graph. So good luck with this. And just remember, as you're doing these, you're working either miles per hour or feet per second, whichever one you choose.